Hello everyone. Hello, how's it going? Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to a new live stream. How are you? Hola a todos. Bienvenidos a un nuevo en vivo. ¿Cómo están? Espero que estén muy bien. I hope you're doing well. Today we are going to talk about 5 common phrases, 5 common Spanish phrases. And this is episode 17. Wow, time flies. Episode 17. And yeah, we're going to talk about some new common phrases on this channel. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and also click on the bell icon so you can get notified every time I live stream. I want to give a big shout out to our Cafecito members, Christopher and Michael, Ruby Brockenberry, Brianna L, Gregory Ramirez, Michael Lee, Nick Ross, David Beaver, Regulation D, Juanco Juan, Roy W, David, and great at work. Thank you guys for the support. It's greatly appreciated. And if you want to support this channel, you can also do that by getting a membership. You can find a join button down below. If you want to read more about the membership, you can just click on that button and read more about the perks that you get when getting the membership and the fee, which is very, very cheap. It's less than $3, and essentially you're buying me a cup of coffee. So yeah, if you get a chance, please check that out. Thank you again, Cafecito members. And remember that I'm live streaming. So if you want to interact with me, if you want to ask questions about what we're learning, you can use the live chat for that. I see man. Welcome. How's it going? So the only thing you gotta do if you want to use the live chat, you need to be a subscriber. So just click on that subscribe button. That's for free. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, episode 17, 5 phrases you must know. Man, we're gonna learn really, like I would say, really common phrases. They're really common and they're easy to use. I'll show you how they work. I'll tell you about their meaning, about the situations where you can use these different phrases, and just we're gonna talk about them in general. Buenos. Excellent. Okay. Let's learn the first one. The first phrase. Let's see what we have here. Quedarse con. Quedarse con. What does this mean? Do you know the meaning of quedarse con? Quedarse, it's similar to a phrasal verb. Quedarse con, so we have a verb, of course. We have the verb here, quedar. Okay, quedar, that's the verb. And also we have se as part of the verb, which means you can use reflexive pronouns with this verb. Using this phrasal verb, quedarse. So remember that. I have a lesson about reflexive pronouns. So if you want to learn more about them, you can browse my channel, and it's one of the latest lessons. So yeah, I highly recommend you watching that if you don't know how to use reflexive pronouns. So quedarse con. Con is just part of the phrase, of course. Con means with, or essentially just with. okay? Con él, with him. Con ella, with her, okay? So con means with. Quedarse has quite a few meanings. The verb itself, quedar, has some meanings, and the most common meaning is to, it has a few meanings, but quedar, it means to remain. Okay, it's one of the most basic meanings of quedar. It depends on the situation, of course, but it could mean to remain, or if you are going to meet with someone, so it's similar to saying to meet, or to suit, if we're talking about clothes or appearance, and also it means to agree on something, if you're making plans or decisions. So quedar can mean a few things, but we're talking about the phrasal verb or the phrase quedarse con. Quedarse con means to keep. I'll show you the meaning, by the way. I need to show you the meaning. The meaning is to keep. When you keep or retain something, okay? So it's often used when someone decides to take or keep something for themselves. So that is the meaning of this phrase. If you're keeping some books or keeping something in general, anything for yourself, you can use this verb in that specific situation. Okay, so let me show you some examples using quedarse con. The first example is me quedé con el cambio. Me quedé con el cambio. So this is a very easy sentence. Me quedé con. So the first part is the actual phrase we're learning, and then we just added el cambio. Okay, so this means I kept the change. So I don't know. There's situations where you keep the change for any reason. So I guess that can happen. Of course it can happen. Or you can say to someone, keep the change. Quédate con el cambio. So this is a common and easy sentence in Spanish. So let's break it down. Let's see how this sentence works. Me is a reflexive pronoun. Then it can mean me or I. In this situation means I. Okay. Quedé, that's the verb conjugated. Okay. For the personal pronoun yo, technically you can say yo me quedé, but we don't need personal pronouns all the time. I always say this, but we do need reflexive pronouns a lot. So me quedé means I kept. Okay, and then we need to add con because it's part of the phrasal verb or the phrase. Me quedé con. We don't have it in English, of course. That's fine. I mean, both Spanish and English are different languages, so they work different. They have differences. So we can see it here. Me quedé con means I kept. And then el means the, okay, el, cambio means change. It can mean change as in something changing, okay, or it also refers, if it's, a noun, it means change as in just money, okay. Do you have any change? Tienes cambio, okay. So it's interesting that cambio can be used in that situation. So once again, we have the reflexive pronoun, which is right here, right? That's the indication. So we're using a reflexive pronoun. And then we have the conjugated verb quedé, quedé, present tense, past tense, and it's conjugated for the personal pronoun yo, I. Yo me quedé, okay? And then we just added con right here, con, and then the noun, el cambio. I kept the change. Me quedé con el cambio. So that was easy. That was easy, wasn't it? It was easy. So let's look at another example. Oh, by the way, if you want to say quédate con el cambio, you can say that, of course. Oh, sorry. Let me show you. Let me show you here. Quédate con el cambio. Keep the change. That's a very common thing to say in English and in Spanish. Quédate con el cambio. Quédate con el cambio. And this means keep the change. Okay? Keep the change. There you go. Keep the change. Just, it's okay. You don't have to give me anything, right? This is used if you can say this to a waitress, a waiter, you know, if you're like, oh, just keep the change. So that's great. Quédate con el cambio. And we can see that queda, this is the verb conjugated, and then we added te, which is the reflexive pronouns, because reflexive pronouns can go before the verb or as part of the verb. So when you place reflexive pronouns after the verb, they gotta be a word, one word. So you attach the reflexive pronoun after the verb, or to the verb rather, and then we just do the, you know, we add con, which we have it here. This one doesn't change at all, and then we add el cambio. Okay, in this situation, the change. This obviously can change to anything else. Quédate con el libro, for example. Quédate con el libro. And this means keep the book. Okay, so you can change. It's very flexible. You can change this noun to any other noun that you want. And yeah, it's very easy, very easy. Quédate con. Okay, so let's look at another example using this phrase. ¿Quieres este libro? So someone might ask this. ¿Quieres este libro? And the other person can say, puedes quedarte con él. Or it could be the same person saying the same thing. I mean, the question asking and just saying the next phrase or the sentence below. ¿Quieres este libro? Puedes quedarte con él. What does this mean? What does this mean? This means, do you want this book? Or similar to saying, would you like this book? But technically, the literal translation is, do you want this book? Okay? You can keep it. You can keep it. You can keep it. ¿Quieres este libro? Puedes quedarte con él. Do you want this book? You can keep it. So that's easy, 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 easy. So let's see how this works. This works, I mean, the whole thing, let's just break it down. And quieres, tú quieres, we are not using the pronoun tú, the personal pronoun tú, which means you, right? In questions, when talking about questions, usually you don't use personal pronouns. You just add the conjugated verb, okay? Especially when talking about wanting something or when you want to say want in the question. So quieres means do you want, Okay, so that's interesting. You don't have to say tú quieres este libro. No. You just say quieres, quieres. Do you want? Quieres. You can say quieres café? Do you want coffee? ¿Quieres dinero? Do you want money? ¿Quieres dormir? Do you want to sleep? Okay, so quieres can be used with verbs and nouns, of course. So it depends on the situation. Right now we're using a noun. We're using the noun libro. Libro means book. El libro, book or the book. And we have este. Este means this. And este can be masculine and feminine, also plural. So este is masculine, esta is feminine. If you add an a or a, esta. But in this situation, it doesn't work because libro is masculine. You always need to pay attention to the grammatical gender of nouns, okay? So libro is masculine, so esta doesn't work, but that's feminine. Esta casa, this house. Este libro, this book, okay? And also plural, if you're saying books, you can say estos libros, these books, okay? These books. But the feminine version is estas, feminine and plural. Estas casas, for example. These houses, okay? So always pay attention to the noun, okay? So in this situation, we're talking about one book. So we need este libro, this book, okay? So after that, we have puedes, tú puedes. We're not using the personal pronoun tú as well, because in Spanish, we don't use them often unless you want to be very specific. For example, él, he, she, ella, right? Él, ella. Sometimes you have to be specific because you can say él canta. He is singing or he sings. But if you say canta, it could be él, it could be ella, right? So you have to specify in those situations. But usually you don't need personal pronouns. So just you need the conjugated verb. Puedes. Puedes means you can. Okay? Puedes. Quedarte. And we have what we're learning right now, this phrase right here. Quedarte con. And in this situation, it means only keep. Okay? And then el. We're saying el because libro is masculine. Okay? So that's why we have this el, even though el can also mean he. It can also mean a masculine noun if you want to replace it, okay? If you don't want to say libro again here. So el is similar in this situation, it's similar to eat, okay? El because libro is masculine. So let's see the phrase we're learning. It's right here. Quedar. We have the verb, right? Quedar. And then we attached the reflexive noun te, quedarte. And we have con, which never change. It doesn't need to change at all. Con, and then we have it, el, right? So quedarte. Tú quedarte, okay? Tú, we don't need to. Tú puedes quedarte con él. You can say that, but we don't need that. But it's interesting that we're using te, right? It means you. Quedarte te, you, quedar, keep, con, we don't have it in English. And then el, well, el is it. Puedes is can. Okay? So you can keep the book. So it's quite interesting. Te is a reflexive pronoun. It can mean you. It can mean yourself in some situations. So it's quite interesting. So remember that. Te. For example, when you say te quiero, I love you, is essentially you're saying yo te quiero, right? But we don't need yo. So you just say te quiero, and that means I love you. Te means you in that situation. So yeah, it's interesting, all the reflexive pronouns and how they can work, as direct object pronouns, indirect object pronoun. But it's interesting. And obviously, well, it can be also a reflexive pronoun. It can get complicated for sure. But remember, quedarse con means to keep. Essentially, you're just saying you're keeping something for yourself. And that's the meaning of this phrase. It's very common and it can be complicated, but now that you learned it and I showed you how to use it, I think it's easier now, right? It's easier. So do you guys have any questions? Hello, Jess. Presente, profe. That's good. Welcome. Osman. Olis, ¿qué tal tu día? Mi día va muy bien. Hasta el momento va muy bien. Muchas gracias, Osman. ¿Cómo va tu día? ¿Cómo va tu día? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? Cuéntame. Welcome. Me quedé con el cambio porque soy bien codo. That's a good example. Really good example. These are great. I am writing them in my notebook. That's awesome. That's awesome, Jess. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And your example is great. It's correct. Tiempo. Definitely tiempo. Tiempo. Excellent, excellent. Welcome, guys. Welcome. So let's continue. Let's learn the next phrase. The next phrase. What do we have here? Phrase number 2. Frase número 2. Let's see. Acostumbrarse a. This one is quite long. There is one word the first word is very long. Acostumbrarse. Acostumbrarse. Let's do it again. Acostumbrarse. And then a. Okay? Acostumbrarse a. Acostumbrarse a. Okay? So the pronunciation can be challenging here, but what does this mean? We have a verb again. Acostumbrar. Acostumbrar. Do you know the meaning of acostumbrar? Do you know the meaning of this verb? Yo acostumbro, tú acostumbras, él acostumbra. Man, that's a long verb. It means usually to get used to. To get used to. Also, if you have a habit, it could mean to be in the habit of. Okay? So if you're used to doing something, you can use this verb. And if you want to describe your habits, you can say, hey, for example, I usually read before sleeping. You can say acostumbro a leer antes de dormir. So it's just a habit, that you do. Also, it means to be accustomed to. Okay, so you're talking about actions that you do often and you're used to. Okay, so that's very interesting. But what does acostumbrarse a means? I think I pretty much said the meaning already. Acostumbrarse a, oh, by the way, we have again se, which means you can use reflexive pronouns with this verb. You will have to. You will have to. And then we have a, which means to in some situations. It can also be used in different ways, but it can mean to. Okay, to, to. So let me tell you that acostumbrarse a, let me just delete this. Acostumbrarse a means to get used to. So I said it a few minutes ago, to get used to. So essentially you're using the verb acostumbrar, but you are adding details. So if you want to talk about your habits, you need the verb acostumbrar plus the reflexive pronouns that are very often used in Spanish, and also a. So it's technically a phrasal verb, acostumbrarse a, to get used to. So let's look at some examples using this common phrase. Me acostumbré a vivir en la ciudad. Me acostumbré a vivir en la ciudad. This means I got used to living in the city. Some people like living in a city. Some others prefer a smaller place, a smaller, I would say a town or a small town, or I don't know, maybe they like, big cities, small cities. There's so many options. And in this situation, we're just saying that somebody got used to living in the city, or I in this situation. Okay, so let's see how this sentence works. Me acostumbré a. So that is the phrase right here. So we have me, which is a reflexive pronoun, and it can mean me or I. Again, here it means I, okay, I. You can technically say yo me acostumbré as well, but you don't need yo, you need me, okay? Me acostumbré. Acostumbré is the verb conjugated in imperative tense for the personal pronoun yo, okay? And me acostumbré a, we just added the a, we have to. So me acostumbré a means I got used to doing something. Usually you add a verb right after the a, okay? So the verb has to be in the infinitive form, which means do not conjugate the verb, just leave it as is. In English, you have the gerund, right? Living. In Spanish, we don't have the gerund. We have the infinitive form. So vivir means to live. So technically, it's similar to saying in this specific situation, living. Okay, me acostumbré a vivir. I got used to living in the ciudad. Ciudad means city. Okay, me acostumbré a vivir en la ciudad. I got used to living in the city. Very good. Very good. Very good. Now, the next example. Let's look at the next example. Oh boy. Nos acostumbramos al clima frío. Nos acostumbramos al clima frío. We got used to the cold weather. Man. I don't know if I can get used to cold weather, honestly. I don't think so. But some people like, cold weather. Some others not that much, not so much, but it's interesting. So, nos is a reflexive pronoun, and in this situation means we, okay? You can say nosotros nos, because personal pronouns and reflexive pronouns can work together, okay? Even though you're saying technically twice we, it's possible. You can say nosotros nos, but you don't need nosotros because you have the reflexive pronoun here and also the verb, conjugated verb. So, nos acostumbramos al. We have what we're learning right now, right here. Acostumbramos is the verb acostumbrar, conjugated, and then we have a. Okay, but what's happening here? We have the letter L. What is it? Why? Nos acostumbramos a, by the way, means we got used to, of course. But we have al as opposed to a because technically we're talking about clima, right? Clima. And if you want to say the, well, you need el because clima is a noun and it's also masculine. I know it looks like a feminine noun, but it's not. Clima is masculine. El clima. It's not la clima. La clima, no, wrong. It's el clima. El clima. Okay? So, when you have this happening in Spanish, when you have a and then you have el, that automatically becomes al. Okay? Al. It's wrong to say a él unless you're saying to him, but that's a different thing. When talking about to thee, and if the thee in Spanish is masculine, then it has to be al. Okay? So if you have a él, it needs to be al, not a él. Okay? Al. And that means to thee. Clima means weather. Okay, weather. ¿Cómo está el clima? How's the weather? Okay, so clima means weather. And also frío. When you say clima frío, that means cold weather. You can say clima cálido. Cálido means hot weather. Clima cálido, the whole thing. Cálido means it's a different way to say hot when talking about weather, okay? You can also say caliente, clima caliente, that's also correct. But a different way to say hot weather in Spanish is clima cálido. Clima cálido, okay? So hot weather. Excellent. So as we can see here, we have used the phrase that we're learning. We have it here and we have it here. Okay, so it's quite interesting that acostumbrarse a means to get used to. Acostumbrarse. Remember that verb acostumbrar, acostumbrar, acostumbrar. You need to just say this verb over and over to nail the pronunciation. It can be a little challenging, but it's not impossible. Acostumbrarse, acostumbrarse, or acostumbrar, acostumbrar. Okay? Excellent. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions? Hello, Greeny King. Hi, I was wondering why the first example is in the past tense, but the second is in present tense. Acostumbramos. You mean acostumbré and acostumbramos? Is that the question? Or is it also past tense? I don't know. It looks like present to me. Okay, sometimes in this situation as well, acostumbramos, sometimes it can be present and sometimes it can be preterite, past tense. When talking about this verb acostumbrar, when you say nosotros acostumbramos, can mean we used to, or nosotros acostumbramos a, we used to, or it can also be used in present tense. Preterite tense. So it's the same conjugation. If you look at the conjugation of the verb acostumbrar, it can mean both. I can show you here. I think I can show you. Like for example here, might be too big, but you have present tense. Yo acostumbro, tú acostumbras, él, ella, usted acostumbra, nosotros, nosotras acostumbramos, right? We have acostumbramos. And also we have acostumbramos in preterite tense, preterite simple past tense. So sometimes that happens with some verbs, that present tense can also be preterite tense. So yeah, simple past. Okay, simple past. But yeah, it can happen. It can happen. So you're technically right, but because it's the same, it can be past tense and present tense. It all depends on the context. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Great question, by the way. Eddie Barrios. Hello. ¿Cómo estás, Eddie? How are you? Or you might have answered how la, al, from el, la, al, from el. I understand. Okay, I'm not sure about that question. Okay, good. Okay, so we're good. Excellent. So let's talk about the next one, guys. The next phrase. Man, it can be tricky. Huh? It can be tricky, but it's not too difficult. You just have to get used to, the words and the structures and how the meanings and all the tiny differences that you can find in the language. But yeah, That is actually good. Easy to remember. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So let's continue. Phrase number 3, frase número 3. Hacer el ridículo. Hacer el ridículo. This is an interesting phrase. Hacer means to do or to make. It's a verb. And then we have el. El means the without the accent mark. If it has the accent mark, it means he. Okay? And ridículo, it can mean a few things. Ridículo means ridiculous or absurd. Okay, it's similar to that. It's used to describe something that is, that is just absurd. And you need to use that with caution. But this phrase, if you're saying hacer el ridículo, it means something else. It's similar to saying we're talking about something absurd or something ridiculous, but it's a bit different. Hacer el ridículo. Ridículo. Hacer el ridículo. The whole phrase means to make a fool of oneself. Okay, that happens. You don't want to make a fool of yourself because I don't know, maybe you don't want to dance because you're feeling that you're gonna look like a fool, right? Or you don't want to sing, you don't want to do certain things that might make you look like a fool. I don't think. I think people should just not think this way. It's good to try new things. But anyways, hacer el ridículo, it's a common phrase that means to make fool of oneself, or when you feel embarrassed, okay, to embarrass yourself or oneself. And it is used when someone acts in a way that is silly or embarrassing, unintentionally, and others might laugh because of that. So it's you know what I mean, to make a fool of oneself. Essentially, that is what this phrase means. So let's look at some examples using this phrase. No quiero hacer el ridículo en la fiesta. No quiero hacer el ridículo en la fiesta. And by the way, this is not a literal translation of this phrase. Hacer el ridículo is like saying to do something absurd or ridiculous. That's more like the literal translation, but it's very similar to the English phrase to make a fool of oneself. So, no quiero hacer el ridículo en la fiesta. This means I don't want to make a fool of myself at the party. Maybe it's, you have to wear a costume or something like that, and you're feeling like, no, I look ridiculous. I'm not gonna wear that. I'm just gonna wear normal clothes. So that could be the situation. And let's break this down and let's see how this sentence works. No quiero. Technically, you're saying yo no quiero. We don't need yo. You can just say no quiero, and that means I don't want. If you're adding more to the sentence, it means I don't want to. No quiero can be used by itself, and if you're just saying this just by itself, no quiero, that means I don't want to. right? I don't want to do something. But you can obviously add more to the phrase. If you do, you can add a verb in the infinitive form. Hacer, no quiero comer. I don't want to eat. No quiero hacer. I don't want to do or to make something. No quiero correr. I don't want to run. No quiero hablar. I don't want to talk. Okay, so that's an important detail to notice. So, no quiero hacer. I don't want to make. Obviously, we have the phrase we're learning right here. Hacer el ridículo. And that means to make a fool of myself. Even though we're not really changing anything here. But when you say no quiero hacer el ridículo, the whole thing means I don't want to make a fool of myself. En, et, la, the, fiesta, party. You knew this one, right? Fiesta. You knew this one. Fiesta, la fiesta, the party, or just party. So that's quite interesting. Quite interesting. No quiero hacer el ridículo en la fiesta. I don't want to make a fool of myself at the party. So maybe you can use also this sentence if you want to say, hey, I don't want to get drunk because no quiero hacer el ridículo en la fiesta, right? So, no quiero beber. I don't want to, or you can say, no quiero emborracharme. I don't want to get drunk. Porque, because, no quiero hacer el ridículo en la fiesta. I don't want to make a fool of myself at the party. Interesting. Now, let's look at another example using this phrase. Oh my God. Here we go. Prefiero no hablar en público. Prefiero no hablar en público para no hacer el ridículo. Prefiero no hablar en público para no hacer el ridículo. And this whole thing means I prefer not to speak in public to avoid making a fool of myself. Okay? So that's interesting. And that's very interesting. I always say that, but it's just very, very nice. I don't know. I like to see how, Spanish works and how different English is as well. And it's just nice to understand how both languages work, right? I mean, in this situation, we're focusing in, learning Spanish, but it's nice. It's also nice to see how English works. But anyways, prefiero, yo prefiero. We don't need yo. We don't need it. Forget about it. Yo prefiero means I prefer, or just prefiero means I prefer. Okay. No, we have in English not. In Spanish, no can mean no, can mean not, can mean will not or won't, can mean didn't. Okay, so no can be used in many different ways, but usually it's just a negative word that can just mean no, don't, won't, didn't. It depends on the situation, of course. But when you say prefiero no, that means I prefer not to do something. And you can add a verb right after that. And it has to be in the infinitive form. Okay? So you don't conjugate it. When you say prefiero no hablar, that means I prefer not to speak. Okay? I prefer not to do something. Hablar is the something, and that means speak. En in público. Público means public. Okay? It depends on the situation, but essentially público means public. Okay? And it's important to learn this term as well. Hablar en público. That means to speak in public. Para, to, no. I mean, you can say evitar because that's a more literal translation. But when you say para no do something, right? It's similar to saying to avoid. To avoid, but also you can say evitar. Para evitar. Okay, evitar is a more literal translation of the word avoid. Okay, but you can say either one. Para no hacer. Oops. Para no hacer or para evitar. Okay, either one works. To avoid, hacer, and we have the phrase we're learning. Hacer el ridículo. Making a fool of myself. We have the gerund here to avoid making, but when you say para no and then you add a verb, it has to be in the infinitive form, not gerund. So don't conjugate the verb. Same with para evitar. If you add a verb right after, it has to be in the infinitive form. Okay, not the gerund. That's a big difference between English and Spanish. There's a lot of situations where in English you use the gerund, making, cooking, running, so on and so on. And in Spanish, you don't use the gerund in certain situations where in English you do, right? So you would have to use the infinitive form instead. So it's good to pay attention to those details and just make sure to remember that. Excellent. So let's change this a bit up. Let's change it up a little bit, and let's change because here we have, in both examples, we have hacer el ridículo, and here as well, hacer el ridículo, right? So let's just change it to something else. For example, you can say something like ella hizo el ridículo ayer. Something easy, nothing complicated. So that way you see that you can actually conjugate the verb hacer, right? Hacer. So ella hizo el ridículo ayer. This means, do you know what this means? Do you know what this means? This means she made a fool of herself yesterday. I don't know, maybe she said something, she acted in a way that was a bit odd, right? So you can see here, let's break it down. Let's break this down. So we have ella. Ella means she. Hizo. That's the verb hacer in present tense. So made. Okay. And then the rest of the phrase, el ridículo, a fool of herself. So you don't have to say herself or something similar to this in this situation, in this phrase, because you just need to worry about conjugating the verb hacer. Okay, and then add el ridículo. Ella hizo el ridículo. Yo hice el ridículo. Ellos hicieron el ridículo. Okay, so just worry about the verb hacer. The rest you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Ayer. Ayer means yesterday. Ayer, yesterday. So remember, hacer el ridículo means to make a fool of oneself. Similar to saying that, it's it's a very common phrase used in all Spanish-speaking countries. It's nothing that is specific to, certain country. So just remember that this is a very common term, common phrase that can be used everywhere in the Spanish world. Excellent. Do you have any questions? Any questions? No quiero trabajar. That's a good one. Hello, fancy pants. Prefiero no caminar ahora. Great example. Both no quiero trabajar is correct. Prefiero no caminar ahora is correct. Prefiero no gritar en público. It's also correct. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Any questions? We have two more phrases, and that is it. 2 more phrases. Time flies, huh? Time flies. Okay. Let's learn the next. Me acostumbro a hacer el ridículo cuando intento decir palabras avanzadas en español. Okay, so you're used to making a fool of yourself when saying advanced Spanish words. That's funny. It's a good example. Thank you for sharing, Lindsay. And don't feel that way. Don't feel that way, because when learning a new language, it's okay to make mistakes. It's good to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. So don't feel that way. I would change what you said a little bit. You can say me acostumbré a hacer el ridículo cuando intento decir palabras avanzadas en español. So you're saying I got used to making a fool of myself when saying advanced Spanish words. But it's good. You don't feel like that. It's a good example. Thank you for sharing. El tiempo vuela. Oh yeah. Time flies. El tiempo vuela. Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing, guys. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so the next phrase, frase número 4. Venir bien. Okay, so venir is a verb. Venir, and then we add bien. Venir means to come in English. Ven aquí, come here. And it's used to indicate movement toward a place, okay, or a person. And it's, yeah, essentially the main meaning of venir is to come. Bien means good or well. So if someone asks you, how are you in Spanish, ¿cómo estás? You can say bien, well, which is good, right? Good. There's a difference between bueno and bien. Okay, I actually have a video about that, but bien is used with verbs a lot. Comer bien, eat well. Cantar bien, sing well, or to sing well. Venir bien essentially means to come well. essentially. But we're talking about something else, similar, but a bit different, okay? So let's see what venir bien means. The meaning is to suit well, okay? To suit well. Venir bien is a common Spanish phrase. Of course, you know that. And yeah, it just means to suit well or to be convenient, okay? It is used when something is suitable or convenient for someone. So, venir bien. We should look at some examples using this phrase, venir bien. Okay, because it's a bit tricky. This is an advanced phrase. Yeah, it is an advanced phrase. So, the first example is, where is it? Este horario. This is a tricky word to pronounce because the R sound is quite, it's not the R sound. It's more like ra, re, ri, ro, ru. Okay? So, este horario. Okay? Este horario me viene bien. Este horario me viene bien. By the way, you can use reflexive pronouns with this phrase. I mean, technically you could say venirse bien, but it sounds, sometimes it's kind of odd because sometimes in Spanish you can see, that it, the se added to the verb. Sometimes you don't, but a lot of Spanish verbs can use reflexive pronouns. So many. I would say, I cannot tell you exactly, but I would say 90% of the verbs can work with reflexive pronouns. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's very, very common. So what does this mean? Este horario me viene bien. This means this schedule suits me well. Maybe you like working, early in the morning or maybe in the afternoon. And when talking about your schedule, your work schedule, well, it should be something that suits you well, that it's good for you. It's convenient for you. So this phrase is about that. When something works for you, okay? When something is good, okay? So we're talking about schedule. We're talking about anything in your life that is just convenient. It could be, we're talking about places, we're talking about schedules, we're talking about work, we're talking about food or something convenient, essentially. So let's break this down and let's see how this phrase works. Este means this. Okay, este is masculine and singular. Remember that we have esta with a, right? Esta also means this, feminine, and there's also plural. Estos, plural masculine, estas, plural feminine. Okay, este horario, it's masculine, este, because horario is masculine, the noun. Este horario, this schedule. Okay. Me is a reflexive pronoun, and it can mean I or me. Okay. In this situation, it means me. Me viene, we have the phrase here, bien. Me viene bien, suits me well. So just remember this last part, because if you want to say suits me well in Spanish, you can just say this, me viene bien. You can also say me viene bien este horario. So you have the second part first. Me viene bien este horario. This schedule suits me well. Okay, so it's the same meaning. It's flexible, and just by itself, me viene bien, that means that something suits you well or suits me well. That's the literal, that's the translation. Okay, so that is what we have here. That's the first example, and so that's the first one. Let's look at the second one. Let's see what we have here. Oops. Te vendrá bien descansar un poco. Te vendrá bien descansar un poco. And this means it will suit you well to rest a little, or it will be good for you to rest a little. So we're talking about just the, we can tell, or we can say this to someone who needs to rest, So it's technically you're saying you should rest. It looks like you need to rest. So essentially that's what we're saying. But we're just saying it will suit you well to rest a little. Just rest. Just go rest. So let's break this down. And let's see how this sentence works. Te, we have reflexive pronoun. Te, okay? Te can mean yourself or you. In this situation, it means you, okay? And then we have vendrá bien. So that is the phrase conjugated. Of course, we conjugated the verb. Te vendrá bien means it will suit you well, okay? Te vendrá bien, it will suit you well. Descansar, similar to saying rest. Descansar means rest. When you're resting, tengo que descansar. I have to rest. Descansar is a verb, and we see it in the infinitive form. So when you say te vendrá bien or te vendría bien, or just using this phrase, if you add a verb right after, use it in the infinitive form. Do not conjugate it. And te vendrá bien means it will suit you well to do something. In this situation, rest, descansar. And un poco means a little. Un poco, a little. Okay? So keep that in mind. All the definitions, the meanings. Remember, venir bien means to suit well. To suit well. Do you guys have any questions? ¿A qué hora te viene bien quedar? Prefiero no venir, no prefiero venir. Yeah, that's correct. ¿A qué hora te viene bien quedar? That one, I don't know exactly what you mean, Fancy Pants. Te vendrá bien descansar un poquito. Poquito, te ves cansada. Good. That is good. That is good. And if you notice here, viene, that one is conjugated for the personal pronouns. It's present tense, okay? And it's conjugated for the personal pronouns él, ella, usted. But it's technically it, because we're talking about horario, okay? Horario. And this is it. This is it. Here, we're talking about descansar, right? So technically, we're talking about an it again. The conjugation here, because this vendrá the conjugation is it's the conjugated verb of course venir for the third person singular él, ella, and usted, and also its future tense. Okay, so we're technically conjugated the verb for it. Okay, in this situation, this schedule, in this situation, it's just it, because you need to rest, right? So just keep that in mind. The conjugation that we're using it for it. It can be also plural. It can be for example, if we, for some reason, say estos horarios, okay, that these, for some reason, can be plural. These schedules me vienen suit me well, okay? Me vienen bien. And vienen is for ellos. The conjugation here, vienen, is for these schedules, which technically this is considered they. Okay? Ellos vienen. But it's just a plural thing, you know? So, estos horarios me vienen bien. These schedules suit me well. So when you conjugate this verb venir, just pay attention to what you're referring to. Is it an it? Is it like these? Okay, plural, or just one thing that is convenient for you, or multiple things. So just keep an eye on that when you conjugate the verb. I know it can be tricky, but that's how it works. That's how it works. The conjugation specifically. Excellent. Last phrase. Any other question? I was trying to say, what time suits you? In the second to last line. ¿A qué hora te viene bien quedar? ¿A qué hora te... remember? A ver, let me see. What time suits you? ¿Qué hora te viene bien? Yeah, you can... you don't need quedar. You can say ¿a qué hora te viene bien? Or ¿qué hora te viene bien? Quedar, I don't think you need it. I would just remove quedar. Yeah. it makes a bit more sense. Yeah. So, yeah. Great examples. Thank you for sharing, Fancy Pants. I really like your username. It's really good. I like it. Okay. Now, frase número 5, last phrase. The last phrase, guys. That's it. Frase número 5. Where are you, phrase? Where are you? Doesn't want... It's a little shy. Doesn't want to... Okay. Echar un vistazo. Echar un vistazo. Oh man, this is a good one. This is another advanced phrase. It's not that difficult to use. You just need to worry about the conjugation of the verb echar. Echar un vistazo means to take a look. Echar un vistazo. Echar un vistazo. And yeah, it means to take a look, to glance at. It's used when someone wants to quickly look at something, okay, or check something briefly. Just take a look, a quick look, okay? So just go over a document or something and just make sure it's fine, right? So we're talking about that kind of situation. Echar, by the way, the verb echar, man, that one means so many things, but it means to throw something, right? Or to pour. You can, in some situations, you can use it and it means to pour. For example, echar el agua en el vaso, to pour water into the glass. That's a different way to say to pour, because you can say it in a few other ways, but echar can be one of them. Echar also means to expel or dismiss. Echar a alguien del trabajo, to fire someone from work, or echar a alguien de un lugar, to kick someone out of a place. So yeah, echar can also mean to add. If you want to add, for example, salt to your food, echar sal a la comida, to add salt to the food. And it can also mean to lie down. For example, echarse en la cama, to lie down on the bed. So echar has quite a few meanings. We can talk about this verb in the future, but we're gonna focus on the phrase echar un vistazo, which means to take a look. What a difference, huh? If someone says this and you're used to using echar in a specific way, this can throw you off a little bit. Like, what are you talking about? But echar un vistazo, remember, it means to take a look. Un means a, but we don't have, well, we have a here, right? Vistazo, it can mean a few things as well, but it usually, you can use this word when you want to say glance, just glance. Vistazo means glance or look in English, of course, and it's commonly used in this phrase. Echar un vistazo, okay? Mostly. So let's look at some examples using echar un vistazo. Remember, the V sound in Spanish is similar to the one B as in bell in English, to that one. So don't worry about, oh my God, is it different than the letter B as in bell in Spanish? No, it's the same one. B. Of course, when spelling words, you need to refer to both B and V differently in Spanish. B, that's B, and V, or a B chica, that is V, okay? So that's a different thing, but the sound is the same. Vistazo. Now, let's look at some examples. Let's look at some examples using this this phrase. Eché un vistazo a la revista. Eché un vistazo a la revista. This means I took a look at the magazine. You took a look at the magazine. Maybe because you don't want to buy it. You just want to look at the magazine briefly. And you can use it in this way, of course. Echar un vistazo, just a quick glance, right? So let's break this down. Let's see how this sentence works. Eché, yo eché. That's the verb echar conjugated. We don't need to say yo. When you say eché un vistazo, that means I took a look at. Oh, well, let's just say I took a look only. Okay? That's the correct thing. Now, if you want to add more to the sentence, you want to specify where you looking at, you can add a. Eché un vistazo a. And that's similar to saying at. Et. The revista magazine. Okay? Eché un vistazo a la revista. I took a look at the magazine, or I glanced or went through the magazine really quickly. Essentially, that's what you're doing. Now, that was easy. You can change revista to something else. It can be documents, documentos. Eché un vistazo a los documentos. Okay? And that means I took a look at the documents. Okay, so easy breezy, nothing complicated there. Let's look at the next example using this common phrase, echar un vistazo. Okay. ¿Puedes echar un vistazo a los documentos? Well, you know what documentos mean. You know what they mean. ¿Puedes echar un vistazo a los documentos? Can you take a look at the documents? ¿Puedes echar un vistazo a los documentos? Can you take a look at the documents? So let's break this down. Puedes. You don't need to say tú puedes. You need to say specifically when saying a question, when asking. Puedes means can you, okay? And you don't need to say you in any, like, not in the question. It's not a thing in Spanish. You cannot say puedes tú. Maybe it can be regional, a regional thing, but it's very common to not have personal pronouns in questions, specifically in the beginning. Okay, puedes, can you? That's the meaning of puedes. So puedes, can you echar un vistazo? Take a look, just take a look, and then to say at something, right? Los, the documentos, documents. Okay, so puedes echar un vistazo a los documentos? Can you take a look at the documents? So this is another basic phrase, question. And I would say, question and this sentence, both are really basic. But this phrase is a bit informal, okay? But it's okay to use it, for example, at your office. If you say this to a coworker, absolutely, you can say it. Or if you obviously you can use this with your family, with your friends, at work. Okay, you can use it without a problem. It's nothing offensive or something will no one's gonna get upset if you use this, because even though it's informal, it's still very commonly used. And it's just a way to say to take a look. You can use other things, you can say other things. You can say it in different ways. Echar un vistazo is one of those ways to say, to take a look. You can say mirar a, leer. It depends on the situation, what you want to say, right? What you want to say. But for now, let's focus on this one, echar un vistazo. And that is a common way to say to take a look at something. Okay, it can be documents, it could be even people. If you want to, glance at it's I don't want to say to check someone out, but if someone is like, oh my God, like look at this person is very handsome or beautiful, you can technically use this, échale un vistazo, but it's mostly used when you're talking about documents, projects, information, magazine, websites, emails, and all of that. Okay, so that's what I wanted to let you know. Excellent. Any questions? Gracias. Fancy pants dancer. Dancer in Spanish. That's another. That's a good one for sure. How to say dancer in Spanish? Bailarín. Bailarín is one way to say dancer. By the way. Bailarina, right? Even though that also means bailarina can also mean other things. Bailarina means dancer specifically, but also women who, or people who, this is bailarina is feminine, but also can mean, I forgot, ballerina, I think that also, bailarina also means ballerina. I think that's the word. But yeah, dancer, bailarín, masculine bailarina, de los pantalones elegantes, like that. Right. I started listening to rock en español, and I noticed that it is the only time they use personal pronouns when they need a couple extra syllables or to rhyme. Yeah, that happens. And poetry, 100%. The notification bell icon me viene bien para avisarme que estás a punto de estar en vivo. Lindsay, great example. Do you like Camilo Septimo? He rocks. I don't know Camilo Septimo. But you know what? I'll look that up. I'll see. I'll check out his songs for sure. Camilo Septimo, ballerina. Yeah, ballerina. So any more questions, guys? We learned 5 different phrases, Spanish phrases, very common in the Spanish world. Man, and they can be tricky. Some of them are trickier than others, but overall I think they're all quite easy to use. There's some details you need to pay attention to, but all of them are really good. No more questions? Are we good? I want to say thank you to everyone who watched this stream. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I hope you learned a few things. Thank you so much for sharing examples and asking questions. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. And remember that I live stream every week. I believe last week I wasn't able to stream, but I usually stream every week. So if you want YouTube to let you know every time I stream, you can turn on this bell notification, all the notifications, just by clicking on the bell icon next to the subscribe button. I believe that's where it is, and just turn all the notifications on so YouTube lets you know every time I live stream or every time I release a new video on my channel. Are these live chats made into videos? Maybe. I think what happens is after I'm done streaming, obviously the stream stays on the channel, and I believe there's some you can see the chat replay or something like that during when you rewatch the stream, just as a video, if that's what you mean. But yeah, I believe that's the case. Yeah. No problem, Fancy Pants Dancer. Thank you for being here and watching this stream. Also, Greeny King and Lindsay, Seaman, Jess M, Osman. Thank you for stopping by. Eddie as well. Yeah. Okay, I'll see you. Oh, remember, if you liked this lesson, please give it a like. That helps me a lot. And remember that I have a Spanish community on Discord. So if you want to join, you can do that for free. You can find the link to that community in the description down below. And also, if you want to support this channel even more, just check out the membership on this channel, the Cafecito membership. You can click on the join button down below for that. And that is it. I'll see you next week, guys. Los veo la próxima semana. Espero que todo lo que aprendimos lo practiquen. I hope that everything we learned, I mean you, because I already knew about these phrases, but whatever you learned, I hope you learned from this stream. I hope you practice it. Practice makes perfect. Remember that. So take care. Thanks for watching. Gracias por ver. Nos vemos a la próxima. I'll see you next time. Bye. Adiós.